ministers and ministry representatives, please be in our separate meeting room by 4:30. And I don't know whether there's coffee. If not, please go to the coffee place to pick it. But we will start at 4:30 in our room. Yeah, Alex, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This presentation I also gave in July at the open-ended working meeting in Vienna. So if some of you have been there, you might have seen it before. It is about fishing and fishing vessels. And there's a great number of numbers in it, but perhaps you will enjoy it anyway. There will be a little introduction, then a little bit about refrigerants, and then the current state of the fishery industry. Refrigerants, by the way, this is salmon that have been frozen at around -47. The smile is a little bit stiff, as you can see. We have the refrigerants, we have been talking about them extensively, but to the right you have the non-halogenated refrigerants, and to the other side you have the others. I actually, just from the negotiations around the EN 378, got a message while I was sitting here that the YF is to be considered to be moved from the A2L to B2L, just for your information. Anyway, I'll not go into details with this, you know it already. But what was interesting for the people out in the Pacific was that they already now say that the R404 is extremely expensive compared to R22. So I have made some price comparisons globally, and I put them into a table. We showed them yesterday. Here I've tried to use the same info and it actually fits very well together, just that the Fiji and these kind of places, they pay a little bit extra for the transport and they buy smaller smaller amounts, so it makes it slightly more expensive, but this is very good representing the values out there, and you can see 404 is about twice as expensive, and this is also the message I got from there. But you can also see 407C is even more expensive. And if I start to look at the new HFOs, it doesn't make sense, so I didn't put them in at all, because they would not consider them for 1 second. I will come back to illegal trade in a second. All this leads to what can we do, and all this also points at we can find some solutions, but for one particular type of freezing, -70 degrees evaporating, we are running into problems. And of course we can discuss, can we extend the phase out of R23 for a moment, or what do we do? Because the alternatives could be ethane, but ethane, as most of you probably know, is slightly flammable and it burns fast. That is the biggest problem. Means that it creates a bigger pressure if it explodes. If we look at the current state of the small island states situation, they have a lot of ice machines, they make cold stores, and they also have spiral freezers and this kind of equipment, all based on R22 today. Potentially, they could also use R717, and they do to a big extent. Actually, when I was looking into all this, I found that there was a period before where they used ammonia, then they went into HCFC, for a number of years, and they changed back to ammonia in a lot of the ships and also some land-based installations. As you know, it's not so easy to just convert a system from R22 to ammonia, but probably it can be done at a reasonable price. Alternatives could also be, of course, 404, but and all these the alternatives are written here, but not all of them are viable. You could discuss if they should use transcritical CO2, especially on the land base. it is quite warm out there, I have to say, and it's year-round. It's not only a matter of seasonal fluctuations. So therefore, especially the cascade systems, you could evaluate ethane, but then it has to be with a secondary loop. It is also a possibility, and we can evaluate. It needs more. And one of the Kigali amendments, it was not very often talked to during these 2 days, but actually this task force report that we made for the Vienna meeting has to be upgraded for the next, so that we are already looking at it now. Retrofit, yeah, it is an easy question to ask, but it's much tougher to say yes or no, because it depends a lot on the state of the equipment. A lot of equipment that has been running for say 25 years or so, it is not suitable. Then you can take in the between, is it suitable for, yeah, it depends, and it's also a matter of interest to do it. So there's a lot of things to look at, but it is, if there are financial support, things can happen. On the ships, you have a different world. You have the RSV tanks, you have the freezers, you have the ice machines, you have the provision systems, which is a much smaller part of the system, and then you have the air conditioning systems, which is very often actually a little split unit that they have bought somewhere locally in the market. It can be R22, it can be any funny gas you would propose. But the big systems are mainly R22 and 717 or ammonia, if you like. You can imagine the scenario where you go and do the ultra low with 407s if, and that is because that they say they have minus 60 in the cold room for the tuna fishing. Because Fiji, they had been doing a test, and they found that these cold rooms, they are actually not minus 60, but they are closer to minus 50. So a possibility is 407F, but then they have to accept the higher temperature. But there is a penalty, and that is that the quality of the tuna meat, the sashimi, will suffer a little bit. Then you can say, what types of fisheries are we looking at? And then you can see also a lot of the growth we see now is actually not in open sea fishing. It's more what we call it farming or cage fish, either on sea or in lakes. But this is what you can see in the dark blue here that gives the extra growth because it seems there is a tendency of overfishing also in the Pacific, and the big, what I call it, groups of fish, they are disappearing. And for this kind of farms, it also makes sense. This is from a Norwegian installation where they have 800 kilowatt system, and this is where we have frozen these 5 kilo salmons. This is those who are with a little bit more stiff smile before. This is before they're frozen. But this makes good sense on land-based installations to do this kind of things. Practices is I have to say, maintenance, service and maintenance is a nice concept, and it keeps the system in good shape and everything, but it's not always appreciated. A refrigeration technician, he is loved when he comes to solve a problem and hated when he goes, because whatever he did and how quickly he did it, the bill is always too high. And this is also the case in the Pacific, and therefore sometimes it is a big topic to discuss. Let's go to something a little bit more interesting. And here is all the figures. I hope you can see them, because I myself have troubles with focusing to all this from the distance we have here. But the big issue, we have about 4 million ships out there, but not all ships have a refrigeration system, I have to say. The smaller ones, they have almost the power they need to get out on the sea and get back again alive. So this is the small ones up to say 12 meters in length. And if they have any cooling at all, it will probably be ice that they get in the harbor. They don't have any. They don't have the power on board to pull up ships, fish. So that is not part of this. Then you can say the ships between 12 and 24 meters. Yeah, they can have a little bit of cooling power, but it is not always they have so much extra. So what we are looking at is the ones over the 24 meters or 100 gross register ton. And it is about 50,000 ships that we're looking at. And whatever register I've been looking at, both on the Pacific and elsewhere, the average age of these ships is about 15 to 20 years around the world. So there is a huge pile of fishing vessels that now need to update their freezing system, and it is a big amount. And a lot of them, they have at least 2 tons of R22, if not 20. Depends a little bit on the size of 22. So if you want the banks, you have them here. You can play with the numbers. It is 2% of the total fleet, and 70% of the fishing fleet, they are out in the Pacific. That's why the interest is on those ships, not so much over here. Also, European ships, they are fishing out there. You can see the Spanish, they have about 44 ships also fishing tuna. Portuguese, they have 9. France, they have some 14 ships. And then there are some fish carriers, means that they don't fish themselves, but they just transport. But you can see there's a lot of people fishing tuna, mostly tuna. Then back to the, here is how they showed it, and they have a nice art out of this. This could also be in the North Atlantic. Then you just have to change the names of some of the countries, and then you will see, because we have seen in Denmark many cases where a ship can be totally refrigerant free when he goes out of harbor, no refrigeration on board, and when he comes back, everything is frozen and the refrigeration system is full of some kind of refrigerant, R22. Where did that come from? It came from Murmansk, but here they buy it from China, and in Murmansk they basically also get it from China, but that's another thing. But there's also who does report the refrigerants, because the small islands, they can either sell it directly to the ship or they can sell it through a contractor, but not all of it gets the right attention, and that is a little bit of a problem inside the UN system. So this is for Halvard and his colleagues to look at, and they will have some fun out of that. Where is the fish caught? Most of the fish is actually caught around the coasts. It's not, you can see on the big seas as a desert that nothing is happening out in the middle of the Pacific or the Atlantic. It's around the coast where everything is happening, where the water is shallow enough, because no fish go down to about 4,000 meters, because there's, yeah, you can eat a little bit of rocks and this, but there's nothing really happening with food down there. So you can see all the fish are actually caught around. That's why there's so many small boats and not so much big boats. Around safety, there is one big difference between a land-based system and a ship. On a land-based system, if something starts to run out of the system, you can run out of the door and you can run far away. On a ship, you can jump overboard, but that is not always a good option. And this is one of the big things here. Therefore, a lot of people there talking about ammonia is perhaps not a good solution, but actually they are very happy with it, and it doesn't cause any problem in the everyday. And they have the machinery, it's quite concentrated, and there is actually a trend toward, we have seen that, for example, the Dutch high sea fleet, all of it has been converted into cascade systems, mainly using ammonia on the high side and all CO2 on the low side. So, yes, that's so interesting here. And this is the concentration levels we have to accept on board ships. And just a quick sum up, which refrigerant will we see in the future on board the ships. You can see most of them, they are only designed to go down to about -40, especially the new ones. In the good old days, if the good old days were good, you had R13 for going to the low temperatures, then we changed to R23 or 508, but they are with the high global warming potential, so they are perhaps not the obvious solution. Then ammonia at -70, it is a little bit to the hard side, but of course if you have sweat volume enough, CO2 is not an option because you go below the triple point, so that's why I say we have a challenge here, but we can find a solution. To discuss all this, there will be a conference in Bangkok next year. I can see here on this, it is about April 6 to 8 next year, where you are welcome to come and participate if you have interest in this. And that concludes my presentation. I hope that we will in time to get some coffee.